Greetings mga ka-spacers natin out there from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Magandang araw po sa inyong lahat. This is your ka-spacer and Space Commander Professor Jun Cajigal from the Bedans Society of Young Astronomers. And I would like to welcome everybody, mga ka-spacers natin out there, in this special Saturday live stream entitled BSYA Presents. So for tonight, we will be featuring videos that were made by the members of the Bedans Society of Young Astronomers. So asan pa ho kayo mga ka-spacers? So talagang ginawa ito ng mga members ng BSYA. So please like and share this video presentations tong ating palabas po ngayon so that we could reach more people, lalong-lalo na po yung mga estudyante, so that we could inspire them to love the sciences. Alright po, so again, pakiusap ko po sa inyo mga ka-spacers to like and share this video presentation tonight, itong BSYA Presents. So, in our first video, we will be featuring astronomy and the movies. Ayan po. So, very interesting po ito. So, again, please like and share itong ating BSYA Presents po ngayong gabi. Alright, so let us now watch this video presentation made by the members of the Bedans Society of Young Astronomers, Astronomy in the movies. So join me mga ka-spacers and let's watch this!
Apollo 13 being based on an actual event provides us a real sense of adventure and tension. Truly one of the most riveting movies to watch if you yourself are interested in astronomy. The movie begins with a surprise selection of Lovell's group to crew Apollo 13. Astronauts Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert were played correspondingly by Tom Hanks, Bill Paxton, and Kevin Bacon. Additionally, there was Ken Mattingly, played by Gary Sinise, who was subjected to be ineligible for flight because he had been exposed to measles. Moving forward, we meet the members of their families, we follow some of their training, and then the movie follows the ill-fated mission in space and underground. Kranz, the Harris character, chain-smoking camels, masterminds the grand effort to figure out how and if Apollo 13 can ever return. When an oxygen tank exploded en route to the moon, the three astronauts on board were faced with the possibility of becoming marooned in space. Their oxygen could run out, they could be poisoned by carbon dioxide accumulations, or they could freeze to death. If somehow they were able to return to the Earth's atmosphere, they had to enter at precisely the right angle. A scheme is dreamed up to shut down power in the space capsule and move the astronauts into the Lunar Exploratory Module as a sort of temporary lifeboat. The lunar module was designed to support 2 people for 2 days, but was suddenly required to support 3 people for nearly 4 days. The crew subsisted on 6 ounces of water per person a day, power was severely rationed, and the temperature inside the cabin dropped below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, causing the crew great difficulty sleeping. The 2 spacecraft both used lithium hydroxide canisters to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but the canisters had different shapes on the 2 spacecraft. CO2 levels were approaching dangerous levels when the mission control designed a system using plastic bags, cardboard, and duct tape that allowed Aquarius to successfully use lithium hydroxide canisters from Odyssey. The crew used the engines on Aquarius to make 3 trajectory correction maneuvers that were needed to reach the landing zone in the Pacific Ocean. When Odyssey entered the Earth's atmosphere, it was unknown if the explosion had damaged the spacecraft's heat shield. Fortunately, it was undamaged. Because of the low cabin temperature, atmospheric humidity had condensed, covering the cabin interior with drops of liquid water that fell as rain during re-entry. Despite these dangers, the crew landed safely near Samoa 6 days after the mission began. This movie truly captures the successful failure and triumph of these intelligent men working hand in hand to survive what could have potentially been one of the most devastating space missions in history. Even though the technical material is dense and the action is confined to a space smaller than an elevator, the tension is breathtaking as the astronauts and the mission control team in Houston try to think of their way back home. Everything from duct tape to the cover of the flight manual to one of the astronauts' socks were used in the story, where Mission Control asks simply, "What's good in that chip?" and builds from there. The legendary "failure is not an option" said by Gene Kranz, head of Mission Control, when most people were certain the astronauts would never make it back, is one of the most heartening lines that depicts the crew's perseverance.
The movie begins on the timeline during the 1960s, in which racial and gender inequality is prevalent. White people are separated from colored people and are treated differently. The three African American women named Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson are all gifted with brilliant minds and works at NASA as colored computers. Take note that computers during the 1960s were people, primarily women. They were the one who reduced or analyzed data using mechanical calculators. Racism and discrimination are revealed to be at the forefront of this film, but the film also highlights strong and brilliant powerful women who overcame racial stereotypes, gender biases, and even being belittled by men. The three African American characters, Catherine, Dorothy, and Mary, demonstrated to NASA headquarters that they can be just as good as the others despite their differences in race and gender. They are also the brains behind one of the history's greatest and most historic operations, in which they contributed to data analysis and analytic geometry, and in which John Glenn was sent on a mission to become the first American to orbit the Earth, which occurred on February 20, 1962. He was a passenger on the Friendship 7 space capsule. How does the film explore the vast world of space astronomy? The movie takes us back to the early 1960s, in which technology has not yet been fully developed into a high-level or advanced kind of AI technology. We generally know that astronomy movies are more focused on the sci-fi theme, in which there are multiple fictional characters. Some movies are about astronauts going into space because of some kind of missions. But what's special about this movie is that it delves deeper on what's behind all the preparation on space launching. Viewers can see the hardships of the people who are working at the NASA headquarters, analyzing data, and even solving hardcore advanced maths without high-tech calculators such as analytical geometry to determine the angular positions and latitudes before launching a rocket to space.
Next up on our list is The Martian. The Martian is an enthralling and rigorously realistic outer space survival story, which is Matt Damon plays as a NASA botanist stranded on the Red Planet after a sandstorm forces his crewmates to abort mission. Like Robinson Crusoe on Mars, Damon's right stuff hero has to get by on his own wits and science the heck out of the predicament. It won't be easy, but it is possible. And that's the exhilarating thrill of both Andy Weir's speculative fiction novel and screenwriter Drew Goddard's science fact adaptation. Considering that the United States hasn't launched a manned space mission since 2011, The Martian should do far more than just make Fox a ton of money. It could conceivably rekindle interest in the space program and inspire a new generation of future astronauts. As Mark Watney, Damon serves as the poster boy for these future space travelers, a good-humored, all-American team player who's just 18 sols or Martian days into his mission when he is impaled by a communication antenna and left for dead by his colleagues during a forced evacuation. Watney is the lowest ranking member of his team and the least equipped to handle such a situation, with one of the noble caveat. As a botanist specialist, his assignment was to investigate whether plants could grow in the environment without the fertilizer or water. And now, with only enough food to last 400 sols and the next planned mission nearly 4 years away, Watney's ability to pull off that tall order will determine whether he lives or dies. Actually, there are 1,000 different real-world things that could kill him, but it's clear that he won't survive unless he manages to cultivate Mars. The Martian finds director Ridley Scott and his team innovating once again, this time moving in the direction of the plausible to present the most realistic version possible of a manned mission to Mars. With a few well-chosen stylistic flourishes courtesy of costume designer Johnny Yates. Though the film proves reasonably suspenseful in parts, Scott isn't trying to generate the same real-time intensity as Gravity. In fact, The Martian takes place over nearly 2 years, demanding an altogether different pace. Nor does he distract himself with attempting to pioneer in the field of 3D filmmaking, though he does incorporate the technology in effective yet non-distracting ways. Though Watney has already proven himself resourcefulness by doctoring his own puncture wound, his recordings serve the dual purpose of giving him a chance to explain the complicated science ideas while endearing us to Damon's naturally charismatic personality. Now we move on to the question, how does the film explore the vast world of space astronomy? In the film, astronaut Mark Watney is stranded on the Red Planet, where in reality, in preparation for sending humans to Mars, NASA have completed one of the most extensive isolation missions in Hawaii, known as High Seas. The goal of the study was to see how isolation and lack of privacy in small group affects social aspects of would-be explorers. The most recent simulation was 8 months long, and the next mission was planned the next year after. Next in the movie, astronaut Mark Watney grows potatoes on Mars, where in fact NASA has already begun growing and harvesting lettuce on the International Space Station in preparation for deep space exploration. Growing fresh food in space provides future pioneers with a sustainable food supplement and could also be used for recreational gardening during deep space missions. Lastly, the movie has depicted the dangers of real-life space travel. Spaceflight is almost taken for granted. People hop into rockets and start them up with the ease of turning on a car engine. Getting into and out of a spacesuit takes a matter of seconds. In a modern-day spaceflight, these things requires hours, days, and weeks of preparation, no matter how many times they've been done before. And that means there are dozens or hundreds of engineers, project leaders, and other staffers who are all essential for getting probes into space, not to mention astronauts. By using real obstacles as Watney's enemy, the movie is also able to not only stick to real science, but also make it extremely fascinating. Once again, boring science problems become interesting when they are part of a great story. Major struggles arise because of how cold Mars is, and because it has different atmospheric pressure than Earth, and Watney's artificial habitat. NASA struggles to communicate with Watney and send him supplies because the distance between Earth and Mars are very far away from each other. It's fantastic to see a movie that captures that attitude. That passion is hardwired into people, that humanity is now making serious plans on taking people to other planets. Nature will trip us hard again and again, but that's the expected part of the journey. Overall, The Martian was a very interesting movie and a mind-blowing one, and we rated 9 out of 10.
Alright, so ayan po yung first video presentation, Astronomy in the movies. Ayan, so marami po akong paborito talaga na mga movies na related po sa astronomy. Yan, lalong-lalo na po yung The Martian. Talagang favorite ko po yan at talagang yung konsepto ng palabas ay parang pwedeng mangyari po yun, no? Yung how to go to Mars, then in case na may stranded. So talagang scientific po yung dating ng palabas na yan. And even yung nangyari sa Apollo 13, no? So maraming mga movies na astronomy related. So if you want, kung meron po kaming na-miss na mga palabas na related to astronomy, please comment down below mga ka-spacers. Kung meron po kayong naiisip na mga movies related to astronomy, please comment down below. Alright? So we would like to hear from you mga ka-spacers natin out there. Okay, so again po, please like and share. Pakiusap ko na sa inyo, please like and share itong BSYA Presents so that we can inspire young minds para ma-engage sa siyensya. Alright, in our next video presentation, we will be featuring astronomy and novels. So ang title nito ay Cosmic Reads. Ito po yung mga babasahin na related sa astronomy, mga books, no, or novels related to astronomy. Alright, so huwag na tayo magpatumpik-tumpik pa mga ka-spacers. Join me and let's watch this!
An astronomical December to you, Caspacers. It really is beginning to become a sweater weather season for us, isn't it? On this third day before the asterific Christmas, we'll be presenting to you a selection of cosmic reads that will certainly make your holidays more magical. I am Micaela Antosikin and
I'm Hannah Marie Franstan who will be your Caspacer presenters for today. An astronomical December indeed, Ate Micaela. These three spectacular book finds are certainly magical and fascinating enough to spice up this cozy season, especially for our Caspacers who love to read. And for those looking for book recommendations, Caspacers, this is your sign. We won't keep you waiting, so let's head on to the first book of the selection. Starting off strong and space-tastic, this one is titled Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. In this stunning new science-based thriller from the #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Martian, a lone astronaut must save the world from calamity. Rylan Grace is the lone survivor on a desperate last-ditch mission, and if he fails, humanity and the planet will perish. With his caustic demeanor and amazing talent for theoretical physics, Rylan Grace, the key protagonist, is a lot like Mark Watney. It also helps that the book reintroduces the original novel's catastrophic stakes and amps them up to 11. This is no longer just a story about one guy's survival. It's now a story about one man being in charge of the entire planet's survival. It's another book about problem solving under duress, in which a single man's ingenuity may aid in the resolution of a seemingly impossible challenge. Except he doesn't realize that right now he can't recall his own name, much less the nature of his task or how to perform it. Rylan recognizes that he now faces an insurmountable challenge with his crewmates dead and his memories hazily returning. As he hurtles through space in this tiny ship, it's up to him to solve an impossible scientific puzzle and save our species from annihilation. An ambiguous technological crisis can be oddly comforting in fiction, and the novel works best as we piece together the situation alongside Grace, whose memory loss is more of a device for parceling out information than a plot point. Aside from a passing revelation toward the end, this isn't a story that treats amnesia as a source of surprises. Weir uses the main character's isolation, which was so important in The Martian, as a handy excuse to ignore messy human issues in favor of a brilliantly planned set of trials that Grace compares to a video game. The outcome is an engaging galactic odyssey for readers who can overlook its flaws. Grace's relentless quips read like the output of an algorithm-fed only Joss Whedon scripts. Astrophague would be the best thing ever if it weren't, destroying the sun. Weir's devolved voice allows for the painless delivery of facts, but it limits the emotions available to our hero, whose usual reaction to astounding events is irrational.
As we dive into our next book, this one is for the classics to read. Charted a few times as a Bildungsroman, and one of the books to read before one graduates. This is also great for if one chooses to read a lighter genre of philosophy and societal cynicism with a bit of random laughter in the mix. So, sit tight as we explore Douglas Adams' massively renowned comic science fiction, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, published in 1979. The plot centers around Arthur Dent, a hapless, down-to-earth Englishman who finds himself adrift in a world of randomness and absurdity, and while it mocks the modern society with wit and cynicism, it also attempts to illustrate a philosophical realization of a meaningless life. And the most notable part of the book is from the beginning. Adams describes the people on Earth as unhappy for pretty much of the time, because they spend a lot of their time trying to find solutions to this unhappiness, and in result, they superimpose this instead to tangible objects like money, which is why the phrase, "the world now revolves on money," is a thought that passes by. Aside from placing a philosophically random definition to a meaningless and happy life, the start of the summary, seconds before Earth is demolished to make way for a galactic freeway, says a lot about the infrastructures and land projects among different countries, if not all today, wherein ecosystems and agriculture are destroyed and neglected to clear space for building roads, highways, and buildings. The hero of the book, Arthur Dent, also lives on in our galaxies after an asteroid was named after the character, asteroid 18610 Arthur Dent. The asteroid Arthur Dent was found on the 7th of February in 1998 with the 45cm telescope in Heppenheim, Germany by Felix Hormuth. The character, Arthur Dent, was described as an ordinary earthling whom, in Hormuth's words, was confronted with the adversities of life, the universe, and everything in a highly amusing and entertaining way. The asteroid Arthur Dent, on the other hand, is also quite ordinary in his words. A member of the main belt, a few kilometers in diameter, with a 4-year orbit between Mars and Jupiter, nowhere near Earth at all. Unfortunately, Douglas Adams, the author of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, passed away 2 days after the official naming. Douglas Noel Adams, the author of our second galactic book, was born in Cambridge on the 11th of March 1952 to his management consultant and computer salesman father and nurse mother. He grew up in England, later moving with his mother and sister to live with his grandparents who run an animal shelter after his parents divorced. His passion for animals grew as a result of his time spent there, and has always demonstrated a high level of writing ability as well as a sense of humor. Adams was also an outspoken environmentalist, and while he adored technology and was a staunch promoter of Macintosh goods, he was also advocating for more sustainable technological advancements like universal chargers to save waste. We see this in some parts of the book, where there had been plenty of hilarious digs toward the science, technology, their uses, and abuses. A lot of inventions mentioned go wrong in all too recognizable ways, like the fictional identities a card designed to hold all the multiple secure passwords that promptly get stolen. He says that technology is a word that describes something that doesn't work yet. And we recommend this book because although it is peculiar, random, and a bit on the strange satirical humor side, a part of the book that the readers may or may not appreciate is how it places meaning to life, the universe, and everything. The Deep Thought is the name of a supercomputer built by a race of super intelligent aliens in the book to determine the answer to life, the universe, and everything. And its answer, anticlimactically, was 42. Readers also theorize that 42 is associated with computer and programming. In the American Standard Code for Information Interchange Language, or ASCII, 42 is the designation of an asterisk. And in programming language, an asterisk is commonly used to mean whatever you want it to be. So, Deep Thought answered the only way a computer understands, saying that the meaning of life is whatever you want it to be.
Proceeding to the last but definitely not the least of the selection, the Shards of Earth. Shards of Earth is the first high-octane part of the Final Architecture trilogy. From the author of the exciting science fiction epic Children of Time, this book is Adrian Tchaikovsky's first honest attempt at a space opera. Shards of Earth is a more traditional science fiction fare, a raging space opera featuring spaceship battles, genetically enhanced superhumans, and multiple weird and wonderful aliens. Some trade in people and others try to enslave them. But mysterious and menacing architects seem to barely notice when destroying a planet. Architects are moon-sized beings, and their divine abilities mean that they are free to rearrange spaces and worlds.
Our esteemed author for this last cosmic read, Adrian Tchaikovsky, is a virtuoso of science fiction and fantasy. His work spans galaxies and addresses major issues such as aliens, artificial intelligence, the link between magic and technology, and the separation between gods and mankind. Born in 1972 in Lincolnshire, Adrian Tchaikovsky had a varied career until he dedicated himself to writing full-time in 2018. He studied zoology and psychology at Reading before working as a solicitor in Leeds, West Yorkshire, where he currently resides and cuts a tall, imposing figure. We see the way he tries to portray the compassion, understanding, and offering humanity and solace that only psychologists can first provide. His work, The Shards of Earth, can also invite a message that looking after your own mind is already a daunting task in itself without anyone around, because this deals with elements of loneliness, fear, and depression, and not being able to sleep because of it. This is shown in the 55 years that Idris has spent wide awake piloting alone through the unspace, which is a fictional gravitational space that they pilot through in the book, which is said to have drastic effects on the mentality of the person or persons involved. Lastly, Shards of Earth had earned its place on our reading list because besides its fast-paced, strong story flow, it's also due to the unwilling diaspora that it also demonstrates. This is a lesson that must be taught and instilled in a society where more people are uprooted from their homes than ever before, taking away refugees, whether they are fleeing war, disease, famine, economic hardship, or aliens reconstructing worlds at all, is almost akin to turning away a portion of oneself.
For unknown reasons, turning a foreign spaceship or the whole world into a filigree sculpture that is completely incompatible with life seems to be her favorite pastime. In this universe, ships move between stars by getting on and off in a strange area called Unspace. People who have gone under chemotherapy and psychosurgery programs are the only ones that are able to pilot through the Unspace. Anyone who can steer a ship in this way, like Idris Telemir, one of the main characters in this book, is of great value and is always at risk of being kidnapped and used by gangsters and space fleets. When the book begins, Telemir is trying to stay under the radar and working on a team of outsiders to save the destroyed spacecraft. But the strange psychic powers of space pilots are one of the few ways to telepathically communicate with architects. As the war with architects approaches, Telemir sees a diminishing chance of living a peaceful life. In addition to the problem, navigating space is not good for the human brain. It reacts by creating a sense of predatory being that can offend people. Passengers on ships moving between stars can sleep artificially, but pilots need to be awake. Telemir hasn't slept for 47 years, can you believe? And sometimes it shows.
This sums up our selection for the Cosmic Reads, and we duly hope with the beast finds their justice as we find their way between the shelves and toward your wish list. The Project Hail Mary, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and The Shards of Earth. This has been Day 3, Cosmic Reads, and we hope you have a very merry intergalactic Christmas ahead.
So ayan mga ka-spacers, so that's the video made by the members of BSYA entitled Cosmic Reads. So kung meron po kayong alam na mga libro or novels about astronomy, please comment down below. We would like to hear from you. Baka meron ho kaming na-miss. So kung meron pa ho kayong alam na novels or yung mga babasahin, mga cosmic reads na tinatawag, let us hear from you mga ka-spacers and comment down below. And again po mga ka-spacers, napakiusap ko lang po sa inyo, please like and share this presentation BSYA Presents so that we can inspire young minds para marami po tayong maabot no, ng mga kabataan para maging inspired po sila sa siyensya. Alright, in our last video, we will be featuring as astronauts that spend their Christmas in space. Meron talagang ganun. May mga astronauts po na talagang they spend their Christmas in space. Kagaya na ginagawa po ngayon sa nangyayari sa ISS or yung International Space Station. Alright, so sana marami po kayong natututunan ngayong gabi na ito sa ating mga video presentations. Alright, so let's watch this mga ka-spacers.
I'm Shiva Cruz.
And I am Yves Quiñones.
And we are your host for the 5th day, entitled Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas in Space in the 13 Days of Astrorific Christmas. It seems like it's getting colder as we are getting closer to Christmas, and we want to share a couple of facts on astronomers in space during the preparation and celebration of Christmas.
The Apollo 8 crew, which included Commander Frank Borman, Commander Module Pilot Jim Lovell, and Lunar Module Pilot William Anders, orbited the Moon for the first time on Christmas Eve 1968. The crew left Earth on Christmas Eve and entered lunar orbit on December 21st. The crew beamed Christmas greetings, live photos back to Earth, and a reading for the Book of Genesis to commemorate the event.
Over the next several decades, the concept of space, Christmas, intersected with terrestrial celebrations regularly. The Skylab 4 crew who did so in 1973 was the next crew who spent their holidays in space. Gerald Carr, William Pooch, and Edward Gibson came up with making a Christmas tree out of food cans and patented it. Carr and Pooch completed the space mission ever recorded outside of the Earth's orbit on Christmas Day, lasting 7 hours and 1 minute. When John Blaha was aboard Russia's Mir space station in 1996, Blaha and the crew received a package from the Progress spacecraft, which contained gifts, cards, and food. When they opened the packages though, he said that it was like Christmas and birthdays rolled together when you are a 5-year-old. In the vastness of space, what could become routine to Earthbound observers took a new and special meaning.
Christmas on the International Space Station is a documentary about International Space Station's Christmas celebration. The International Space Station crew, their families, and the ground crew all celebrate Christmas every year. Crew members are given time off work based on their nationality, religion, and culture. Because of the Russian Orthodox Church follows the Julian calendar, and the Catholic Church and different Protestant denominations follow the Gregorian calendar. The crew can celebrate Christmas on the station multiple times, choosing between December 25th, January 6th, 7th, or 19th.
Arrived on the ISS on the 2nd of November in the year 2000, celebrating their first Christmas on board the station later that year. Other celebrations included Expedition 30 with the arrival of Donald Pettit, Oleg Kononenko, and Andrei Kuperus. The station has been continuously occupied since the year 2000, so every Christmas has been a new experience by every crew. The holiday is popular enough that one of the traditions that is developed is having a Christmas dinner. The crew celebrated Christmas by floating in microgravity and opening Christmas presents recently delivered on a Japanese cargo spacecraft. One astronaut wore a space hat, or a space Santa hat, if you get it, in orbit. The French astronaut Thomas Pesquet shared special French food with the Stallion crew. Pesquet also made a Christmas time special video for the ESA, or the European Space Agency.
On the 25th of December 2011, a crew of Expedition 30 took a break on Christmas to take a crew photo. This included Dan Bergbank, Oleg Konenko, Don Petit, Anatoly Ivanishev, Henry Kuperus, and Anton Kaplerov. On 24 December 2013, astronauts made a rare Christmas Eve extravehicular activity, installing a new ammonia pump for the station's cooling system. The faulty cooling system had failed earlier in the month, halting many of the station's science experiments. Astronauts had to brave a mini blizzard of nauseous ammonia while installing the new pump. It was only the second Christmas Eve spacewalk in NASA history.
Since the days of the Apollo missions, when the Apollo 8 crew famously shared their Christmas Eve message in a live television broadcast in 1968, through taking turns reading from the book of Genesis in the Bible, astronauts have criticized the tradition of celebrating holidays in space. It is up to each crew to mark and celebrate these holidays, and space veterans often share suggestions and ideas with rookies before they go up. In the year 2020 though, it will also be how families and friends connect as they socially distance themselves to stay safe. This is a practice which astronauts do every time they go to space. So this is, now that there's the pandemic, we ourselves are doing that training. While astronauts can send emails, hold video conferences, and make phone calls, they have little more time to connect with the family during holidays. The key to enjoying this holiday session though, which is according to the astronauts, is to celebrate in the same way they do in space. Which is with planning, intention, and thoughtfulness.
Christmas will be celebrated in an unusual way for astronauts aboard the International Space Station. On December 25th, 2017, they will be floating weightlessly 250 miles above the Earth. Joe Acaba, Mark Van de Hey, and Scott Tingle were among the astronauts who celebrated Christmas on the International Space Station. According to NASA spokeswoman Dan Huot, some people may wonder if they can work and examine the heavenly bodies at the same time during the holidays. No, they will spend the day with their families and open the gifts they received rather than doing science or research.
So, how do astronauts celebrate Christmas? The astronauts get Christmas dinner, which it's impossible to prepare a full roast meal in the ISS. But either way, astronauts will get an approximation of a Christmas dinner. for Christmas in the year 2018, the crew members got a meal of smoked turkey, candied yams, corn green beans, mac and cheese, and potatoes au gratin. Where do astronauts celebrate Christmas? Well, they celebrate Christmas in the ISS, or the International Space Station, which these are often astronauts that celebrate Christmas there. And this year is not really an exception. Despite being posted to a cramped space station, they still manage to celebrate Christmas with most of their traditional trappings. If they're lucky, they might get the day off as well. So now, who was the first person or the first astronaut to celebrate Christmas in space? And that person is Michael Foey, who spent his first two holidays in space with the STS-100. The first shuttle mission to fly during the holiday, the crew was awakened to the sounds of Bing Crosby's "I'll Be Home for Christmas" on Christmas Day.
It was only the second Christmas Eve spacewalk in NASA history. On 25th December 2016, the crew celebrated Christmas by floating in microgravity and opening Christmas presents recently delivered on a Japanese cargo spacecraft. One astronaut wore a Santa hat in orbit.
So there might be a few questions going into your mind, so I'll be answering a few of them. So first question might be, so there are three questions that me and the researchers and the PPT makers, basically the group, asked. So one question is that in the making of this day, or in the preparation for this day, the writer, the researchers, the PPT makers, the plot makers, and the caption makers, and all of that, had a few questions in mind. So with that, they had to put these intensive research, so credits to them. So one of the questions is that, what goes into managing the space station's food systems? Well, the answer to that is that they have their own food lab on site, which it's located in Houston, which serves as the prime. So the first question is, what goes into managing the space station's food system? Well, the answer to that is that they have a food lab on site, which that site is on Houston, which it serves as the primary provisioning lab for all the space station foods, where they do a lot of freeze frying. They also have a facility in Texas that processes canned foods, not metal cans, but rather they put them in pouches, which they are a more flexible type of cans. The military also developed the resort pouch, which many years ago to replace metal cans because it is lighter in weight and more efficient to stow. The second question is that, do you take requests from the astronauts for the holidays or just in general? The answer to that is that they do. For every month that the crew member is in orbit, they get what's called a bonus container, and they can make special requests. If they have a special type of candy, a cracker, or cookie that they want to take, but they also have their standard menu, which includes a lot of the traditional holiday meals. Like, for example, the standard meal that I mentioned a while ago is what they have as a part of their holiday menu. And if they know they're going to be in orbit at Christmas time, they can take related things in a bonus box. And there might be a crew care package from families too. Things like a certain kind of nut or hard candy that may be a part of their traditions while they're on Earth.
On the ISS, food is delivered refrigerated or dehydrated once every 90 days, which can be cooked in microwaves or convection ovens. Different nations aboard the ISS provide their traditional courses and snacks, helping the crew to share their culture while having a taste of home.
Some notable events regarding the astronauts' space celebrations of Christmas in space. Well, they had many different types. They all had their own ways on how they celebrated Christmas or their holidays in space. But way back in December 1968, wherein the Apollo 8 astronauts, they had a blast celebrating which they were the first one to actually celebrate Christmas in space and while circling the moon, in fact. Aside from that, William A. Anders, Frank Borman, and James A. Lovelace broadcast the moon gliding and even took turns reading the opening verses of the book Genesis. On the other hand, the Skylab for astronauts who consist of Edward G. Gibson, William R. Pooch, and Gerald P. Carr, otherwise known as the first crew to celebrate Thanksgiving and New Year's in the orbit. They spent their Christmas by crafting their own made Christmas tree, which was made out of used containers and cardboard shaped like a comet on top of the tree. And their Christmas was very merry indeed for the crew, despite the fact that they wouldn't be able to spend it with their families, their lovers, and a lot more. And that they had the chance to talk to them, open presents for each other, and they even had a delicious fruitcake. Who doesn't want to have fruitcake in space? Which, who knows how good it is, actually. Even I'm curious. Either way, continuing on. Also, Christmas won't be considered merry if you aren't celebrating Christmas with friends, families. If you're celebrating it alone, it wouldn't be merry. So, for those that are alone right now, try to find someone to spend it with because it will make your Christmas a lot brighter. Hence, Pyotr I. Klimuk and Valentin Lebedev, the Soviet cosmonauts, joined them in celebrations of Christmas, making it the first ever meeting of the astronauts and the cosmonauts in space as a group.
On to the next 3 questions. Is there anything that they can't have even on Christmas? Well, they can't have anything that requires refrigeration. There's no way to refrigerate on the trip up, and then on station, there's no dedicated refrigerators for food. Although they do have a small chiller now for beverages, cool after preparing. They only have warm water and hot water otherwise. For the other question, do tastes differ in space? We have a lot of anecdotal evidence from astronauts that their taste buds are affected in microgravity. It's very probably related to the fact that when they are in microgravity, their ability to smell the food is compromised. Think about when you're on the ground and you have a cold and your nose is stopped up. The food tastes different. When they first go into orbit, the fluid shifts, makes them very congested, and that interferes with smell. For the next question, I imagine it's hard for astronauts to be away from family on the holidays. Is there any upside to spending holidays in space? The answer to that is the great thing about being on station is that you can celebrate Christmas twice because the Russians celebrate Orthodox Christmas in January. They get the day off, so typically they will have a plan, a special meal, pull out some of the special foods. In talking to some crew members, they say the socializing and the meal is a big part of holiday, just like on the ground.
Well, as long as we remember, astronauts have made it traditions to celebrate holidays in space and for them to experience the holidays without their families. NASA astronaut Kate Rubins, Michael Hopkins, Victor Glover Jr., and Shannon Walker are among the international crew, as are Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronauts Soichi Naguchi and Russian cosmonauts Sergei Kuzlovov and Sergei Ryzhikov. They spend their Christmas in space by sharing a meal together and also call their families and friends to greet them a Merry Christmas. NASA astronaut Dr. Andrew Morgan said that he spent the entire holiday season of 2019 on the space station with his crewmates as they played some games and played Christmas music and watched classic holiday movies. And these astronauts are the ones from the Skylab for space mission, who consist of Edward G. Gibson, William G. Pooch, and Gerald P. Carr. Or they are mostly known as the first people to or the first crew to actually celebrate Thanksgiving and New Year's in space. They spent Christmas by singing Christmas songs.
Commander Frank Borman, Commander Module Pilot Jim Lovell, and Lunar Module Pilot William Anders became the first astronauts to orbit the moon on Christmas Eve, and the first to celebrate Christmas in space. To commemorate the occasion, they sent Christmas wishes and photographs back to their home. It was believed that 1 billion people watched or listened to the program. In 1973, the Skylab astronauts were the first to celebrate Christmas in space, to add a touch of the holiday season to Skylab. They built a Christmas tree out of cans.
And so that's about it, everyone. So thank you all for watching, and we hope that you'll have a great evening and a great vacation for those that are students. And once again, Merry Christmas to everyone. I'm Shivo.
And I'm Yves Quinones.
And we'll see you all next time.
Alright mga ka-spacers, so that's our third video presentation entitled Merry Christmas in Space. So sana po marami po kayong natutunan dun sa ating mga video presentations made by the members of the Bedan Society of Young Astronomers. So I guess that's about it ngayong gabi na ito. So again po mga ka-spacers, so pakiusap ko lang po sa inyo, ibigay nyo na po sa akin to please like and share this online presentation ng Bedan Society of Young Astronomers, BSYA Presents, so that we could reach more people. So marami po tayo sanang maabot at matulungan niyo po kami sa aming advocacy to promote the sciences, especially astronomy, para ma-inspire po natin yung ating mga kabataan to love the sciences. So marami pong salamat sa mga ka-spacers natin out there na nakatutok from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So dito na po nagtatapos ang ating BSYA Presents. Marami pong salamat sa inyong pagsama sa amin ngayon. This is your ka-spacer and Space Commander Professor Jun Cajigal saying, live long and prosper. Always stay safe mga ka-spacers. So see you in our next online presentation. Bye-bye!